This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FI Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Aruna Miller. She's a delegate in the Maryland House of Representatives. She also represents my district, where I live in Potomac, Maryland. Aruna, thank you for coming to our show.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Islam. It's a pleasure to be here.
I noticed that you represent my district. Tell us a little bit about the district you represent.
Sure. Legislative District 15 is in Montgomery County, and it includes the areas of Potomac, Germantown, and Clarksburg. It is the largest district geographically.
Most affluent.
Yes, most affluent, and it also goes from like a very urban area to a very rural area, so we have a lot of the ag preserve. We have a very educated workforce. It's a very diverse district, one that I'm very proud to represent. And in 2010, when the census data came out, it showed that our district grew more than any other district in Montgomery County, primarily due to the development in Germantown and Clarksburg area. But I'd like to think it's also the best district to live in.
Oh, you should take a lot of pride in representing the district.
Oh, I do. And tremendous amount of pride.
Thank you for your leadership, what you do for our country, for our community, and for our district.
Thank you.
Now, when you're not in Annapolis, what exactly do you do?
I am...
It's not a full-time job, obviously.
No, it isn't. And, you know, that's what's great about the Maryland legislature is that it is a citizen legislature.
So it runs from January to April?
Yes.
In Annapolis? So you have to go there every day?
Every day. As a matter of fact, I actually reside there during the session.
Okay, during the session.
Yes, and then I come back home on the weekends. So I think it's a great legislature because it does represent a citizen legislature, which means that anybody who really, you know, feels pride in Maryland and wants to represent Maryland can run for this. If it was a full-time position, I think, you know, the legislators become a little removed from what's happening in their community. So I think it's good that you come back after the session, you understand your community, you deal with your constituents and the issues that they face. So during the day, my job is a civil engineer with a focus on transportation.
And you work for Montgomery County?
That's right.
And your office is in Rockland, Maryland?
Right.
Correct?
Yes. Well, it's in the Darnestown area.
It's the Darnestown area. So that's what you do during the time when you're not in Annapolis.
That's right.
What are some of the challenges do you face as a citizen legislator? And do you find it more challenging to be in Annapolis rather than back home?
Oh, I think there's a lot of challenges in being in Annapolis. Number one, being an engineer during my regular job, the laws that I follow as far as physics goes, it's very clear and defined. When you're a legislator, the laws are not clear and defined, and that's our job, to make it more defined. So there's a lot of the negotiation back and forth to be able to get other legislators on board with bills that you want to pass and amendments, and so that becomes a little challenging, I think, compared to being an engineer
But the important thing is serving our nation, is serving, you're representing our community, so make sure their voices are heard.
That's right.
So they have a seat on the table. And that's how the politics define the landscape of our country of its citizens. And politics creates a common cause, unifies the people, which is what you do for living.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for District 15, we represent roughly about 125,000 residents. So that's
125,000 residents.
Yes. It was up until 2010, 137,000 residents. Like I said, our district grew significantly. So those are the voices we speak for.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for. Great thing to do. So tell me a little bit about, you recently concluded the 2012 legislative session, right?
That's right.
Can you highlight some of the accomplishment from this session?
Sure. I think one of the most significant bills that the General Assembly passed, along with the governor signing off on, is marriage equality.
Right.
And this is for marriage equality
Don't ask,
for
don't tell?
Huh?
Don't ask, don't tell?
I hope it's a little bit better than don't ask, don't tell, yes.
Okay.
It's really the legislature recognizing that all couples should have the same rights as heterosexual couples. Sure. And I think this is a significant bill that came about. Maryland is one of 9 states that's passed a bill like this. And in November this year, during the election, it will go to the voter referendum, so the voters get to have a say in whether or not they want to have equality for all couples as far as marriage is concerned in the state of Maryland.
So that's the significant.
It is, because first the bill was passed, and let's say that the referendum shows that the voters do want to support marriage equality, Maryland will become the first state in the nation to do so. when this has gone to referendum. In all the other states where this has gone to referendum, it has not passed.
So can you discuss some of the bills that you personally were involved in introducing in the last sessions? And I know you talked about it the last time we met.
Sure.
Highlight some of those things.
Sure. I passed some bills that had to do with public safety.
Yes.
One of the bills that I passed is to ban a drug called methadone, which on the streets it's known as bath salts.
Okay.
There was a large case of that recently appeared.
And why do the people take that kind of medication, Aruna?
Well, it's not a medication, it's a drug, a synthetic
drug.
Yes, and I think, for all the reasons that they take other drugs
Sure.
to get stimulation that's beyond what, I guess, reality serves them. And there was a terrible case in Florida recently where an individual went and bit the face off of someone because they were high on this drug. It's been banned, emergency ban in many states, so I was able to pass this legislation that would ban it in the state of Maryland.
So they were able to get on the counter?
No.
This is the prescription drugs.
Yeah, well, it's not a prescription
It's
drug.
not a prescription.
It's just sold under
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, in other type of stores where kids and teenagers and whatnot go to get drugs, and it's sold as bath salts. It's not bath salts that you put in your bath. This is something you actually inject, smoke, or
Good. So what
digest.
else? What else?
Another bill that I passed was to ban electronic cigarettes for youth.
Electronic cigarettes for you.
Yes,
Okay.
right now we have cigarettes that
Yeah, I know.
kids under 18 cannot purchase.
Right.
Electronic cigarettes is a way to get into the market of children, and basically comes in all different flavors, bubble gum, strawberry shortcake, and it's an electronic device that gives you this odorless vapor that actually you get nicotine from. So you can actually smoke it like a regular cigarette, and little kids can go purchase this anywhere in the malls, online, and so I passed a bill that would ban it to the sale of minors.
So it's a great accomplishment in terms of the safety and health of your community.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, it absolutely is.
Now, if I remember correctly, I heard from Governor O'Malley not too long ago, the Maryland General Assembly returned for special sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you discuss the reason for these sessions?
Sure. This has not been a popular session, as you know. What happened is the Maryland General Assembly picked up where we left off on April 9th. On April 9th, on sine die, that's when the legislation concurs or ended, and basically the idea was we're supposed to pass a balanced budget. This is required
Right.
by the Constitution of Maryland. We did pass a balanced budget. Unfortunately, it only included severe cuts to services that we are all very familiar with, over $500 million worth of cuts. So the General Assembly came back again for the special session to pass what's called a revenues packet. So rather than just
So it has to be a balanced approach.
a balanced approach, rather than just have cuts, we would also have a revenues part of that. And part of that included raising income taxes on
For
those.
the people who are middle class or rich?
For what?
For raising the taxes, raising the revenue for the people who are middle class or the people who are super rich?
Well,
It's for both.
Well, actually, the income tax that's raised is based on single filers
Sure.
making $100,000 or
Okay.
more, or joint filers $150,000
Okay.
or more. So this affected roughly about 14% of tax filers in the state of Maryland.
Sure.
So 86% were not affected. So this revenue would essentially get rid of what was called the doomsday budget. Now, the doomsday budget, again, was $500 million worth of cuts to our education, cuts to our, our tax services as far as that relates to biotech industry. These are, companies that are related in this that would get tax breaks.
Sure.
So it included quite a bit of tax cuts, including raising
I
tuition.
wish the federal government can copy some of these balanced approach that we have to raise the revenue, we have to cut the spending, because as you know, we have the largest debt and deficit in our nation.
We certainly do. We certainly do. But I don't believe the federal government is the same way as the Maryland works, which is that we have to have a balanced approach and have a balanced budget.
So looking ahead to 2013 and beyond, what do you believe are some of the important issues that Maryland General Assembly will be facing?
Well, I think, the biggest things that the legislature needs to recognize is that we're always working to make Maryland a better place than
Sure.
it is today. Not only for today, but for the future of Maryland. So that includes we need to be able to continuing investing in education, because right now we're in a
infrastructure?
Infrastructure is another one. Environment is another.
Sure.
Education, primarily because we're in a global competitive market right now. It's
That's
not
the one
just...
that's the one way we can compete in the global market.
Absolutely. So we got, and Maryland has been recognized, number one public school system 4 years in a row. So we're very proud of that title to have.
How do you make education more affordable and accessible, A, and B, how do you create today's students for tomorrow's jobs, so that you have a skilled workforce in order for them to get the, what I consider the job in the job market? It's very difficult to fill some of these skill jobs in Montgomery County, for example, in Maryland also. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think our economy is a lot based on education economy.
Sure.
So we do recognize that in the state of Maryland. We have not, raised tuition on our universities for many years. Just this year,
So
we
you make it
increased
more affordable and accessible.
Absolutely. And had we, passed the doomsday budget, it would have increased the tuition from 3% to 13%
Which
for
is
Maryland
pretty significant.
Significant. And that would have turned a lot of our students away from possibly, pursuing higher education. Maryland has in fact, I think it's Montgomery County that has the largest number of PhDs in the nation that live right here in Montgomery County in Maryland. So again, we do value education, and that's the reason why we continue to invest in our public education system, and it's been #1 4 years in a row.
I agree. Education creates wealth, builds prosperity. Education inspires people. Education creates inspirations. Inspirations moves the nations forward.
Absolutely, and it's the ultimate equalizer.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if I remember correctly, you went to India.
That's
not
right.
too long ago, to your native country, where you were born. Just so we share history and heritage, both of us, and perhaps a common destiny. Can you tell me a little bit about your trip that you took with Governor Malley in terms of the accomplishment, what you did that benefited, obviously, to the state of Maryland?
It was a remarkable trip. We went in November, and Martin O'Malley became the first sitting governor in the state of Maryland to visit India. This was not a trip just for pleasure. He went there with a strategic plan.
Sure.
One was to be able to have economic opportunity between the state of Maryland and India. We were able to obtain over $60 million worth of contracts for businesses in the state of Maryland with India. The other part of it was a more diplomatic relationship. So he tried to create sister state relationships between 2 states in India. One was Andhra Pradesh,
Which is where you were born.
which
in
is
that
where
state.
I was born. So you can imagine how
So you
remarkable.
take a little bit of pride in it.
Absolutely. There was a state that I was born in, and bringing back to a state that I call home now, the two of them being united in a
Great.
sister state relationship was an incredible.
So you were personally able to accomplish that. So
I did, because initially we were considering over 8 different states
Sure.
to have a sister state relationship, and Andhra Pradesh was one of the ones that they were considering. So it was a great sense of pride to see that I was selected. We also went to Mumbai, Maharashtra, and then we went to Delhi.
Yeah,
So the-
all the familiar places that people
Sure.
go to.
Sure. So it was a very successful trip. We had over 100 delegation representatives from businesses, higher institutions of education, community activists that came with.
I know a lot of people came from India, the business people too. As President Obama said, that the U.S.-India relationship is a defining moment of the 21st century. Very well said.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for going over there and trying to create jobs in the state of Maryland. It's very important. Let's just shift our gears about, you alluded to about congressional redistricting, right? Not too long. And a lot of Republicans obviously now very happy. Can you tell us a little bit about the congressional race in that District 6, really?
Okay.
Is that, who's running there, District 6? Is that?
Right now it's Congressman Roscoe Bartlett.
Yes, he's a Republican.
He's a Republican, and John Delaney,
Yes.
who's a Democratic candidate.
Okay.
Yes. So every 10 years, the Maryland Constitution requires that we do redistricting. Why do we do that? Because there is changes in population that happen in the course of 10 years. So as part of that, Congressional District 6 expanded all the way from Montgomery County to Washington County, Frederick County, and it encompasses quite a large area. One of the challenges of doing redistricting is that in congressional districts you have to have exactly the same number of people in each district. In the state of Maryland, we have 8 congressional districts. So this in particular that you and I live in Montgomery County, Congressional District 6, it is between Congressman Roscoe Bartlett and John Delaney. And really the purpose of it, the redistricting also, is to make every one of the districts more competitive, whether it has a sitting Republican or a sitting Democrat. And it really wasn't just intended just to only elect, to make them all Democratic, but really make it competitive for all of the parties.
Well, great. And I'm sure you're dedicated and devoted and determined to make sure that President Obama succeed, correct?
Oh, absolutely. He is a terrific president, and I have no doubt that he'll have a second term.
And he needs your vote, he needs your voice.
Yes,
and he needs the support from all of us to make sure that it's not about the next election, it's about next generations and the future of America.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Aruna, for coming.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate you coming by and sharing some of your thoughts.
Thank you.
That is our show. This is Frank Islam from FI Investment Group wishing you a great week. Thank you.